All right. Thank you for joining me for the Money Talk with Tiff January recap and Q&A session. Thank you so much for everyone who is attending live. As always, I will be posting a copy on the website, a recording, so that way anybody who couldn't be here can still take part in this information. So all I want to do is recap everything that's been going on with Money Talk with Tiff, all of the information that has been shared, and then open it up to the floor for Q&A. So if you don't know me, my name is Tiffany Grant, and I consider myself a human resources rebel. I used to be in human resources, then I decided to make a transition into finance. I am a money nerd, a financial literacy advocate, and a natural teacher. Long story short, I just love talking to people about money. I feel like everyone should be financially literate, and those that are not able to get that education from elsewhere, I want to be a resource for them. So to start, I know last month I had blog posts on here first. I actually didn't have any blog posts for the month of January. I need to do better. So I'm starting with the Wednesday Words of the Week. So the Wednesday Word of the Week is a new email newsletter that goes out once a week on Wednesdays, and I break down a financial term that you should know. So the first one that I have for January was adjusted gross income. So adjusted gross income, or AGI as it's sometimes called, is very important when it comes to tax purposes, because that means that is how much that you are allowed to get taxed on by the federal government. For a quick example, if you were paid $56,000, but let's say in gross income, but let's say you are contributing to your 401k, for instance, and it's a traditional 401k. Let's say you contribute $3,000. So that's $3,000 that you can take from your gross income that would not be taxed. So then therefore, that new amount is your adjusted gross income. And if you need any further explanation, I highly recommend that article. I gave a really good example in that article. And I'll have all the links to all the places where you can find this information, but highly recommend that you get acquainted with adjusted gross income, especially because tax season is among us. It is tax time, and so that's a good term to know. Then for the next 3 weeks, I actually talked about options. So options are when you have the ability, you purchase the right to have the ability to trade a certain security. It can be a stock, it can be a bond, but what that means is, and I'll go into a little more detail later, but if I think the price of a stock is going to go up or going to go down, I would trade a certain option in that instance, and therefore I have the right to lock in that either low price or that high price. So after I did it like a overview of the word options, then I went down and broke it down a little bit further. So in options, there's something called the call option, and then there's something called the put option. So with the call option, you get the option to purchase a stock at a specified price, and you exercise this if you think the stock price is going up. So therefore, if I had the option to purchase a share of Apple, let's say for the deal of $90. I laugh because it's over $1,000 per share at the moment. So let's just say a deal of $90. Then I can exercise that option if I think the price is going to go higher than $90. So let's say I think it's going to go to $95. Then I can lock in that $90 price, buy it while it's $95, and I can either turn around and sell it right then for a profit, or I can keep the shares and let them build. So that's how you use a call option. Now, a put option is the exact opposite. You would exercise that if you think the price is going to go down. So in using the same example with the Apple stock for $90, if I think the stock is going to go down to 85, I'm going to go ahead and purchase that put option, and I'm going to lock in that price. And then it's pretty much like selling short. And if you don't know what short selling is or selling short, there's another article on my page from a previous word of the week, and that'll explain that. But pretty much selling short, put options, they do the same thing. If you think that the stock is going to go down, you go ahead and purchase it. Then we go into the podcast episodes for the month of January. So I had some dynamic guests this month. And every week, if you follow me on social media, every week I was like, oh my gosh, this one's my favorite. Oh my gosh, this one's my favorite. Oh my gosh, this one's my favorite. And they kept changing because I loved all of them so much. The first guest I had was episode 23, and that was paying off over $200,000 in debt with Kim at the Frugal Engineers. So her and her husband, they paid off over $200,000 in debt. Now they're completely debt free. And some key takeaways from that episode is they utilize geographic arbitrage. So that means they would move to different places that were cheaper. They would move to cheaper places, and they wouldn't have any trouble doing that because they knew it would increase how much they're able to pay on debt and how much they were able to save. So I thought that was a genius idea, and it's very novel. If you have the ability to practice geographic arbitrage, I think it was a really good way to go. So kudos to Kim. Then, of course, we talked about the FIRE movement, which is what Kim does, and that's the financially independent retire early movement. I wrote an article for a Wednesday Word of the Week about that. So definitely check that out. And then we also talked about freelancing because her and her husband are engineers, and they freelance. That's all they do. They don't have full-time jobs. So we talked a lot about freelancing and how to make the big bucks doing it. So definitely listen to that episode. In episode 24, we had Building Generational Wealth Through Investing with Calvin Williams Jr. I met Calvin at a local event, and he has a new investing platform called Freeman Capital. It's the first Black-owned investing platform that's available to the public. So key takeaways from that episode, we talked a lot about how generations before him had passed on wealth. We talked about leaving a legacy to your loved ones, using real estate as a vehicle to leave that legacy, and investing in general, because that's what Calvin is all about, and that's what I love talking about. So we had a really good conversation there. Then we had episode 25. That was that light bulb moment with Katrina Dixon. Now, Katrina is one of my idols, one of my faves, and she has been in the game for quite a long time. And, you know, we had a really good conversation because we're pretty similar in a lot of ways, which I was surprised. But some of the key takeaways from that episode, we were both single mothers, so we talked about that. We talked about the struggles and the triumphs. We both talked about why we decided to go into finance or how we decided to go into finance. So if that's something that interests you, definitely check out that episode because we gave our reasons and what we experienced. And then we also talked about the importance of financial education because me and Katrina are both financial educators. So we had a good conversation about that. Then in episode 26, I talked about mindset and the art of negotiation with Teddy Renee. This episode was in the making for so long. I follow Teddy on social media and she follows me as well. And we just had a really good social media relationship. So some key takeaways from that is to always negotiate. Even if you don't think you can, there's probably a way for you to negotiate in that situation. So always negotiate. Worst thing they can say is no. I brought up the important key to negotiation, and that is the first person to show their hand always loses. So try to hold out as much as possible with what you would like from that table. And then we talked about mastering your mindset because Teddy's podcast, United Queendom, she does a lot about mindset and, you know, changing your mindset and things like that. We had a really in-depth conversation about the fixed versus the growth mindset. And if you're not familiar with what that is, highly recommend researching it. It's really good information. I think everybody should know the difference. So that way you can be aware, you know, when you start going to that fixed mindset, you can go back over to growth. So what's next with Money Talk with Tiff? I am working on developing some courses. I'm still rolling those out. I actually take my Series 65 test tomorrow. So I have been studying in my cubby hole all week, and that's probably what I'm going to do after this. But you know, I might run the same workshops that I had in January again, because a lot of people were like, oh, it was the beginning of the year. I'm sorry I couldn't make it, things like that. And when I did do the lunch and learn and, you know, one of the other sessions, it had a really good response and a really good turnout. So I'll probably run those again, maybe in March. And I think for February, I'm gonna give it a break just so I can focus on everything that I have going on. But yeah, so that's what's next with Money Talk with Tiff. And then for more information, for blog posts, you can find it at that link. Wednesday Words of the Week, you can find it there. Podcasts, you can find it there. And always, always, always feel free to email me, Tiffany at moneytalkwitht.com, with any questions that you may have. I am here to educate, I'm here to serve, and I am here to help. So with that being said, that's the end of my presentation. Let me throw it over to the audience here, see if we have any questions. It doesn't look like anybody submitted any questions. So that would be it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night.